I'm Courtney Edens with University of Denver's MBA program with a concentration in marketing. My fourth and final session today was called Brand Building and Storytelling in the Digital Age. There were four different women on this panel. Upsana Gautam, the product manager at CNN, Hitha Palepu, the CEO of Roshan Pharmaceuticals, and has also pivoted into many different fields. Aparna Shawakramani, who's an actor and an author. She was on a Netflix show called Indian Matchmaker, so is a public figure. And Snigdha Sur, who is the CEO and founder of The Juggernaut, which is an online publication that caters to South Asian stories. Um, each one of these women had really incredible anecdotes around their careers, some of which have been more linear, others have been a series of pivots. But if I were to summarize this into, an article, it would be it's all trial and error. When technology moves as quickly and as kind of ambiguously and uncertainly as it does, building a brand that stands the test of time requires trial and error, trial and error. You have to fail and you have to try again and do better and adapt to what's going on in the culture. And all of these women have great stories around that. To kick it off, we talked about, being in service to your audience and then help solving that problem that they're facing, which um, I think most companies know that that's why that they exist. They're there to solve a problem for their customers. However, it's not always so clearly articulated. I've worked at firms where that vision, there was different versions of that vision. And one of my biggest takeaways from this conversation was how important that is. Even if you're a startup, you haven't invested in brand building, you just really want to get your product out there, totally cool. But 4 years in, however long it takes, put pen to paper around that. Like what's the why behind your brand? It's like Simon Sinek's why, not just the how. Um, and that was the kind of the crux of the conversation. Um, you know, another thing that we talked about was just kind of different channels, different marketing channels, and how they help with storytelling for your brand. I think one of the wisest nuggets of information was from Snigdha Sur, the CEO and founder of the Juggernaut. Um, she talked a lot about choosing the right platform to tell a story, and she's in storytelling as a business via the news. And she explained that there's this preconceived notion that storytelling for news brands should happen on Twitter. Like that's where journalists go to tell stories. And she challenged that assumption, and she felt really strongly that her brand should live on Instagram. She's, talked about visuals and how important they were to creating that like raw emotion and raw connection with her audience. And she is killing it on Instagram, and her Twitter presence isn't great, but that's okay because she's going whole hog on Instagram. Um, that's something she called a super channel for her and really encouraged everyone in the audience to figure out what your super channel is. You can't be great at everything. It kind of dilutes your efforts, unless you're a ginormous company with a lot of money to invest in every different channel. So that was a really great takeaway from her. Um, another another interesting tidbit was from Aparna, who is on Netflix and noticed that her audience was using TikTok to talk about the show that she was on. And she's older, not familiar with TikTok. I can relate. Logs in there and starts to just kind of notice and observe what are people doing on TikTok? Are they, you know, dressed to the nines and going out with their friends and makeup and jewelry? And no, they're showing their skincare routine and they're showing their very messy bedroom and things like that. And what Aparna did was just mimicked that behavior. And her first post saw 900,000 views in a day. Of course, she's a public figure, but regardless, had she gone on there very polished with a face full of makeup and, talking about fancy things, probably wouldn't have been successful. She got on there, mimicked what the audience was doing, and met them where they were at. And despite her disliking it, she very comedically shared, disliking that approach at first. She's adapted to it and it's been very lucrative for her. So that's where she's building a brand right now. Um, I think this entire session applies to marketing, advertising, branding. There's so many implications here. Um, I think one of the more interesting tidbits that wasn't something I was already familiar with was thinking about not just brand building for audience, but brand building for partnerships. Um, Snigdha talked about there's a list of dream brands that she wants to work with, and she's got them on a list. And when she has a really interesting idea for a story and can make that connection with one of those brands, as long as she's pitching that story to them as something that benefits their audience or what they do, she feels really confident about doing that, and as such has created some really valuable brand partnerships that's given the Juggernaut so much exposure because of that co-creation, that co-production, and that shared marketing channel. So that was a big one for me. That it's all about storytelling. Even if you're cold emailing a LinkedIn contact from a brand that you really love, what's the story that you're giving them that's gonna have impact and make them want to get back to you? And I think anyone who works on the partnership side could um, could use that. So anyway, great day today. Thanks for listening.